Hey, it's Bill from the Bill Simmons podcast. FIFA World Cup 26 fans, listen up. As the official beer sponsor of the FIFA World Cup 26, Michelob Ultra is giving away $1 million worth of FIFA World Cup 26 tickets and prizes. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26. Michelob Ultra FIFA World Cup 26 superior access. No purchase necessary. Open U.S. residents 21 plus begins on December 1st, 2025. Ends on July 31st, 2026. Multiple entry periods. Visit www.MichelobUltra.com/superior access/FIFA World Cup 26 for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies, 18+.
This episode of The Art of Practice on the Coaching Coordinator Network is presented by GoRout. Coaches, if you want to make practice more competitive, you need more meaningful reps. GoRout helps you eliminate wasted time, speed up communication, and create the kind of tempo that lets your players compete, execute, and improve every single day. With instant play call delivery and seamless practice operation, GoRout gives coaches a better way to maximize reps and keep practice moving. Visit GoRout.com/podcast and use the promo code coordinator for up to 50% off setup fees. That's GoRout.com/podcast using the code coordinator.
I want everybody to know we're running the football and I want us to stop us, right? Because I said that at the end of the game, if we want to close that game, that's what I want. And I want our guys to have that attitude. And I think that attitude only comes from the coaches. If we feel like we have to throw an RPO at the end of the game, the coaches, our kids are never going to feel like they can run the ball. Never. And I think that comes from us.
So I'm a defensive-minded coach, so everything that we do is going to revolve around defense for the most part. But it cranks the intensity up right away at practice because we'll have a pre-practice walkthrough, we'll stretch, and then we go right into special teams compete. But there's a winner and a loser every time. All eyes are on those drills. It's filmed, it's measured. They know that's the way to get on the field for us, special teams-wise.
Most coaches say they want practice to be competitive, but there's a difference between a practice that has energy and a practice that actually creates competition. Competition is not just noise. It's not just a drill with a winner and a loser. It's not just offense versus defense yelling at each other. When it's done right, the competition becomes a teaching tool because it creates urgency, raises the standard, and exposes whether players can execute under pressure or not. And it gives coaches a better picture of who can perform when the reps matter. And that's what we're going to get into today on The Art of Practice, making practice competitive. This is a roundtable conversation with myself and two other head coaches who bring some perspective on creating competitive practice environments. First, we have Coach Evan Karchner, who is the head coach at Maumee High School here in Ohio. Coach Karchner brings the perspective of building energy, standards, and competitive habits within a program. And we're also joined by Coach Lucas Stanton, who's the head coach at Solon High School in Iowa. Coach Stanton leads a respected program and brings strong insight on how competition connects to systems, culture, and execution. So today we're going to dig into how coaches can use competition more effectively, how it's structured, how it's scored, how you keep it from turning into chaos, and most importantly, how you make sure that competition actually improves execution. So let's jump in.
Are all batteries the same? That's like asking if all soccer players are the same. Take Messi, the most decorated player ever. Is there any other player who has achieved that? No, just him. Now take Duracell. Is there any other battery with power boost ingredients inside? No, just Duracell. Remember, goats only trust goats because they're built different. And Messi only trusts Duracell.
Coaches, it's great to have you here. Evan, not too far away from me in Maumee, Ohio, which is about 90 minutes from where I am in Avon Lake, so certainly familiar with the program. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
And then from Solon, Iowa, not Solon, Ohio, we have Lucas Stanton. Lucas, great to have you here as well. Both of you guys are doing a great job in your programs.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. Appreciate it.
So guys, want to set the table with that idea of making practice competitive. We hear that all the time, that coaches want it to be competitive. You could go to some places and you see it done extremely well. I don't know, Evan, if you've had the opportunity, I'm sure you have, to go to an Ohio State practice in the spring, and you see Coach Mick on the microphone calling out winners and losers in every single drill. I mean, it is, to me, like ultimate competition, because everything is competition. Lucas, I'm sure you've been around where you've seen it as well. And I think we all get ideas from that so we can model it within our programs. But I think that's always the challenge, is how do we fit it to what works for our kids within our situation? Because it's not a copy and paste function. So thinking of that, maybe things you've seen, start with you, Evan, how do you think it's done the right way? And maybe where do coaches miss a little bit on creating that idea of we're going to be competitive?
I think a lot of that starts before you even get out onto the football field. I think it has to be a basis of your program. And even in the offseason, our guys compete. I think it ties in a little bit of who we are, a sprint-based football program. In the offseason, we record, publish, and post everything we do. So our kids know, from whether it's running, jumping, lifting, they know, and we use platforms so they can get on the app and know who is on the leaderboards, who's the fastest, who's the strongest, who can jump the furthest. This creates that competitive environment within your team. And then when it gets out to the football field, right, I think that's a little bit of the coach's job as a staff first, right, to expect certain type of energy when you get out there, and then the structure practice, right, to be that way. And especially as I've been a head coach, I'm going into my 5th year as a head coach, I've learned I've wanted practice to be as similar to a game as possible, because that's how you get them to play like a game, right? Friday is the biggest competition that you will have all year. Your kids, I've never had a kid who's not juiced up for Friday. The key is, how do I get that kid juiced up for Monday practice? Or how do I get that kid juiced up for August 4th, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to create a practice environment where, hey, I'm competing. Kids know I'm competing. I'm being watched, right? And it's important that I win or I lose, right? And it's important that I want to win. I want to do my best, and I want to continue to get better, whether that's a tackling drill, whether that's a board drill, whether we do purple and gold drills where me and our offensive coordinator draft guys, and we'll do like an inside run period that's live, or we'll do a team pass period that's live, or a special teams period that's live. And we film it with our drone, and we grade it, and we watch it. And it just creates that competitive environment where kids know, hey, I'm being watched and I'm being scored here. And I say, if you want to be out there on Friday night, show us here, because this is your chance, especially if you're a guy that's a JV or a special teams guy. You might have a chance to go up against a 3-year starter on varsity. Show us that you can play with him. I promise you, we could get you out there. So I think it's a little bit of this, giving them the opportunities to get them to where they want to be on Fridays, and trying to put them in positions to give that effort they give on Fridays as much as possible at practice. I think that can get you to your competitive environment that you want.
Lucas, how about for you? What are the things that, I guess, you're building that competition on? How does it work into, like we talked about there, building it into your culture and, fitting it to your situation?
Yeah. So very similar stuff as coach there. I would say one of the things that we do as a program, and kind of it's with our whole school, we really promote the multi-sport athlete as well, to create that competition. We have an off-season program as well, where we track out-of-season lifts. If they're out for multiple sports, they get points for that. They get points for attendance in the weight room, and we call it the Shield program. So, at the end of the summer, if they get to a certain amount of points, they've earned the Shield decal that we put on the back of the helmet. They get a t-shirt, and we do it for community service hours. So they're just constantly competing, and it helps promote going out for other sports too, which obviously gets them to compete in a different environment. So that's one thing that we do. And there's different levels of points, and, we'll have not many, but maybe a couple guys a year that don't earn their Shield. And it doesn't mean they can't earn their way on the team or play or anything like that. It's just, it's a way to earn that decal and kind of get some competition going. And they'll be checking the points and all that stuff. And, depending on where they rank in points, that allows them to be like first for equipment checkout, team meals. That's the order that we go, who gets to eat first and last and things like that. And we'll incorporate some other things with that. So, that's one thing to kind of drive it year round. And it's a very competitive community that we live in. So that it's kind of like we're kind of blessed to have that competitive nature already established. But then more specific when we get into the season and practice, I think it's something that we're still trying to do more of as a program, how to incorporate in practice. We're always talking about how do we incorporate more competition. And I think in the last few years, we've done a better job of that. But we start with like a special teams compete drill almost at the beginning of practice, every single practice. It's a special teams compete drill to emphasize, one, special teams are important. Two, this is a way for some of you guys that aren't starting on offense or defense to show us. And there's a winner and loser every time, right? Just kind of like you talked about it at Ohio State practice. All of our special team compete drills, we got from LeVar Woods, the former special teams coordinator at Iowa, who's now at Michigan State. Not a better guy in the country, in my opinion, bias being from Iowa, but their drills, we copy and pasted it pretty much and then apply it to the high school level, obviously, but there's a winner and a loser. And it's the great thing about that is all the techniques that we're using in that, same techniques that we're going to use on defense, running to the football and, near hip, near shoulder, all that good stuff. But there's a winner and loser every time and it's out there. And the great thing is kids are getting a lot of reps. So it's not just like two guys competing and everyone's standing behind. We got multiple lines going. We got one end of the field, there's two compete drills going on and it's fast tempo. The other side, there's another side going with another compete drill. We do it for about 3 minutes and then we flip. So, and coaches are evaluating, every coach is involved except for our O-line guys. And then another thing that we took from Iowa was on defense, we tracked the entire practice. Our managers track how many fumbles we cause, how many interceptions, and it's by individual. So, and at the end of the week on our Sunday night meetings, like we're handing out awards, there's helmet decal stickers, award stickers for who got the most interceptions or the most turnovers or takeaways for that week. So there's always a guy at the end of the week that's getting a decal for that. And we scoop it up off the ground. Incomplete pass and Skelly, we scoop it up off the ground. We count that too. So to drive that behavior. And those are things, in my opinion, that show up in a game too, right? Those are one of the things that we measure, the turnover margin and takeaways. And we started doing that probably about 2 years ago, like really tracking it in practice and giving a award for it. And you saw our turnover margin and our takeaways on defense just skyrocket. Like last year, we led Class 3A and takeaways, interceptions and fumble recoveries and strip fumbles. And so, that's one thing. And we do it from the start of preseason all the way through playoffs. We're doing it every single week. We're tracking it. So that's just one way we incorporate some competition. And we do all like the one-on-ones and things like that. And then like to Coach's point about, playing the game. So last year, one thing we started doing about middle of the season is it's high school. So we don't platoon, but we tried to get as much good on good as possible. We were kind of going through district play where we knew we were going to have some games that the starters were going to be out pretty quick, and the best way we thought to kind of like incorporate that competition was, hey, we're going to have some segments here where it is good on good and we're going to put them in some situations and there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And then there's going to be some sort of award afterwards. So like whether it was, hey, these guys get to go first in team meal. We're scrapping the shield points this week. It's if you were on the offense during that segment, you guys are eating first for team meal. We had some like Jersey Mike's certificates given to us by somebody. They all got free Jersey Mike subs if they were the winners that week. We did stuff like that, just to, hang that carrot up a little bit. But we would put up game-like situations, whether it was backed up, and you got to get a first down, goal line, third down situations, like things that we usually script anyway. But now this was like 5 minutes of good on good, and we would go live for a very short amount of time. It's probably the only time that we would actually go live, but we just felt like for those starters, that was going to be a way to get them some more game reps because they weren't going to play a full game for about 3 weeks. And I was worried about, conditioning, playing a full 4-quarter game. So those are just some ways that we really try to incorporate that competition.
I love it. I took a lot of notes there and things that we'll wrap back to, but before we get into some of the specifics there, because you guys brought up some really good things. I do think doesn't mean that it wouldn't work without it, but a very good way to start getting that competition within your program is to do some kind of off-season competitive program. And it doesn't have to be everything. I think I first heard of this. There's a lot of people who will attribute it to different people. In fact, I saw it once in American Football Monthly, and I'm like, well, that guy actually didn't create it. It was Coach Jerry Kill. It was the first time I heard it, and it was when he was at Southern Illinois. So I do think, and having been a head coach at a number of different places, is also like you have to think about what is it that moves the needle for our guys that I can get them to compete on. I took over one program, and I remember getting to the off season, and the coaches who have been there are like, what door do you want us to stand in? I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, after school, we got to herd the kids in the weight room. I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. Well, we're going to have a meeting, and I'm going to tell them what we're competing on. And for those kids, I mean, it was, we keyed in on things that made a difference. And we did not stand at a door one time. And I believe, that off season, our attendance was over 90% at those things. And, I also like what you guys do in rewarding the athletes who are in season. I do think that matters because you want them to feel connected. So their connection is I'm playing a sport and I'm helping my team, right? And they get drafted into certain things and showing those guys like, hey, this guy has value to the team even though he's not here in the off season. So I think there's a ton culturally that's communicated through those things and that's taught. And then I do think it lends itself, obviously, if you've done that, to carry that right into the competition of the season, whatever it might be, like who eats first at the team meal. So the first one I noted was the purple and gold. And you mentioned, drafting guys for us. So I would love for you to just dig into the logistics behind your purple and gold period and how that works.
Well, this first started, we did it. So me and my offensive coordinator have been together since my first head coaching job at Evergreen. And we did it at Evergreen to sort of figure out, because we never really seen these guys play live before. When you first get to a program, right, you never seen guys play live before. So we drafted and we almost had like a scrimmage, right? And we went live and we tried to figure out, hey, who are our dudes and who can we count on Friday nights and who are we going to put in place for scrimmages? And that kind of evolved to what we are today, which became more of a competition because now we're going in our fourth year at Maumee. We've known our seniors since they were eighth graders, right? And now it's become, they know, like, if it's on our practice plan and it says purple and gold period, it's different situations. Like he said, sometimes we'll do goal line and sometimes my offense coordinator would get mad at me. I'll do inside run and he'll be like, can I throw an RPO? And I'm like, no, you got to run it. And he's like, well, the defense will just tee off on us. I'm like, yeah, I want everybody to know we're running the football and I want us to stop us, right? Because I said that at the end of the game, if we want to close out a game, that's what I want. And I want our guys to have that attitude. And I think that attitude only comes from the coaches. If we feel like we have to throw an RPO at the end of the game, the coaches, our kids are never going to feel like they can run the ball. Never. And I think that comes from us. So it really stemmed from learning who our kids were to a competition period to also get them some experience at different situational stuff, especially in August, right? As you're installing your schemes, you still want to teach situational stuff. And I just think that's a great opportunity to draft because we don't two platoon either. We don't have enough guys. A lot of our guys go both ways. And I think it's a great opportunity to see a sophomore that we think might have a bright future that might play JV, that I want to see him go against the senior, right? Say like, hey, I want you to go compete, right? And the senior was once that sophomore. And that's how we get guys to go compete. And we're very strategic about who's where. And usually we draft 3 different sets. So we'll have like a first, second, and third, and we'll do it 3 times. And it takes, depending on what it is, 10 to 15 minutes out of a practice, but our kids get juiced for it, whether it's a goal line period, third down period. This year I said we'd never done this. I wanted to work in overtime. So we're going to do 3 different overtimes because we've never done that before. And we haven't been in an overtime since 2023. So those seniors, a lot of those kids are gone. I told my coaching staff, I was like, you kind of got to walk through an overtime with kids, right? You're going the same way. You got to do a coin toss. I was like, I'd love to do that with a number of different guys, right? Just so we're not thrown off for that situation. But it just comes back to my point that I said about competition and practice. You're changing stuff up. It gets kids sort of locked in on what you're doing because it's new. It's not like, oh, we're doing inside run Skelly team. Inside run Skelly team. It's like, oh, purple and gold scrimmage, what are we doing? It's like, I don't have John playing next to me like I always do. I have a kid who's a special teams kid that might be our third linebacker in. and I might have to help him a little bit more, right? And I almost challenge, especially coming some of the older guys too, be like, hey, don't look at that as a man, I got him playing with me. Like I don't have a varsity starter. Say, hey, bring him along with you, because you never know when we'll be in a battle, someone might get hurt and that kid will be out there looking at, we got to go win a game.
You really bring up a really good point there. Like that was one of the things that we didn't intend to do that, but we found out probably the first or second time that we did that last year when I was talking about kind of like the good on good, like, well, our numbers are such that we're going to have a backup or a third string kid or a special teams kid or a kid that's only a scout team. And with the starter, you quickly realize like, hey, this is good to put some of those guys with their teammates.
Yeah.
You don't realize the teaching that goes on during that time.
Yeah, it was really good.
You want to be competition, but you see the older kid talk to the younger kid, and then the best thing that could ever happen is if that younger kid makes a big play. Like,
yeah.
And then it's like everybody, it's like, that's what you want. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that.
I really loved it. And also it gives those guys opportunities that are kind of like the fringe guys, right? Because they don't always feel like once we get in the season, those opportunities kind of diminish, right? And they kind of, sometimes they feel like they're stuck down on the depth chart. We probably had 2 guys last year that in those situations really showed us that like they're improving, from all the indie stuff we're doing, our other compete drills. And it was a way for us to start thinking about creating a little more depth at some positions too. Like, hey, Ethan over here has actually improved a ton at DB, and he deserves an opportunity to get out in the field a little more. And hey, we're actually a little bit deeper at this spot. We can give this guy who's also a receiver, one of our best receivers, we can start giving him more breaks on defense now because we can trust this kid out here because he's working his tail off and competing, right? So that was just kind of one of the things that we found out quickly when we started doing that last year was this is going to be something that stays now with us. Like we're going to do it all the time.
Yeah, especially the last few years too. And I've taken, at the end of the season, I do an exit meeting with all of our players, just me and them. And I do it one-on-one. And the biggest thing I got from young guys, especially like sophomores or fringe juniors that are just slow developers, are, I want more opportunities to show you, right? Can you find me more opportunities? And I talk to our staff, and this is our way, right? So they know, hey, we're doing purple and gold today. We got full pads on. They know, hey, this is my opportunity.
Yeah.
And I say, be ready to roll. This is a game for you.
Yeah.
Be ready to roll.
Yeah, I really like how you mix up those situations too, because it's easy to do a scripted third down period, right? But to actually now put it on that competition, I love the draft. Those don't take long. And yes, we're in a similar situation, right? And so those guys, yeah, this guy can show up next to you in the huddle. That's a reality, right? A couple other things, just thinking of the situations I think would be valuable, things we maybe don't always get enough practice at. 2-minute, obviously making a competitive 2-minute drill. And then I think also 4-minute, like how often do you practice a 4-minute drill? Like to really put the emphasis on, hey, you guys need to get the ball back and you guys need to keep the chains moving.
So one thing we do every Wednesday is we finish with a 2-minute segment, and it's our first group of offense. And then if you're not on our first team offense, it's everyone that's left over on defense. So it's our second team defense, and they're going live for a full 2-minute drill. Now, we're staying up off the ground on a Wednesday, but it is very, very competitive. And our D coordinator and offense coordinator get really competitive with each other on that. And I'm usually the official on the sideline, and I'll give this situation, hey, we got a minute. Whatever offense, you're down, here's the score. You got this many timeouts on D, this many timeouts on O, and we go. And it gets not just competitive between the players, but the coaches as well. And that was one thing that, again, I really thought was key to our kids' success last year was that 2-minute segment at the end. And then we actually did a couple 4 minutes towards the end of the year when we were getting ready for playoffs. We were like, hey, we haven't had to do this because we didn't have any really close games until I think like maybe week 4 was a close game. And then the rest of the year were no close games for us. So we knew like going to the playoffs, like, hey, we're going to need to practice this 4-minute drill. So we started doing that same thing. Again, very, very competitive. So I like that stuff a lot.
I think the idea too of just it's different scout team, your JVs, your younger guys, they're giving you all they got, right? But to have somebody now that you could compete really makes a difference. And it's something I've started to hear a lot more over the last of a year and a half, 2 years. I remember specifically talking to Brad Spencer from North Central, 3 national championships, they've been runner-up, and them talking about good on good fair amount within their practices. They still do the scripted periods, the scout periods, but they do a lot with good on good. And I think it just goes to the value, because they say we don't worry that it's not scripted or maybe we're not going to see this. We value the competition that it creates and the being more game-like. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
A quick break from our roundtable. Today we're talking about making practice more competitive, and real competition starts with real reps. That's where GoRout comes in. GoRout helps you eliminate the dead time between reps by delivering calls instantly to your players on the field. No huddles, no cards, no wasted communication time, just faster operation, cleaner execution, and more opportunities to compete. Whether you're running team periods, scout work, tempo, or competitive situations, GoRout helps you maximize every minute of practice. Visit GoRout.com/podcast and see how top programs across the country are using GoRout to level up their practices. Enter the code COORDINATOR for 50% off setup fees. Again, that's GoRout.com/podcast and the code COORDINATOR. Let's get back to the episode. I wanted to hear more about your special teams compete drill. You mentioned getting that from LeVar Woods, or getting the idea from him. Talk to us a little bit about the details of that. What you're doing, what's the setup?
Yeah, so we'll have a couple different ones. We'll set up one end of the field where we have one returner, and then so like 3-on-3 compete. So we'll have 3 guys that are running down on kickoff or punt, and then 3 guys that are blocking them, right? So it's a 2-way drill. So we're working on, how we block if we're on the return team, right? Staying I call it high to the touchdown side, working angles. It's hard to explain without the film or the diagram, I guess, but they're starting, probably 25 yards apart, and we start them, and we'll start them close together. We'll start them a little bit further apart, but they have to work that offhand jam. They got to work on a rip, beating the block. And then if you get beat as the blocker, you got to work that angle back to the return guy to try to work and stay in front. So it's also teaching them like, hey, if you get beat that bad, don't block the guy in the back. You got to work the angle to get back in front of them. And then as a return guy, you're working obviously on your return game and reading the blocks and whatnot. And then usually on the other side, like we call it a long stride, short stride, shimmy, shoot drill, where they're working kind of an angle tackle, but it's again, they're running down, and that one is more of a one-on-one compete. So we have 2 lines of that going. And then on another day, we'll have, I can't even remember what we call it now. It's we have a box. We have a guy that's going back like he's on kickoff return, and they have to stay in this box with cones, and they're taking each other on, right? And the return guy's got to stay in that box. So again, there's a winner or a loser between the blocker and the guy that's running down to make the tackle. And we're just usually tagging off. We're not fitting up the return guy on that to stay safe on that. But, as far as the blocker and the guy that's running down as the block destructor or the tackler, it's very high intensity. They're only getting probably 2 to 3 reps in, because we only go for about 3 minutes. But, it's teaching them how to compete on special teams, and it kind of carries over to our defense. So I'm a defensive-minded coach, so everything that we do is going to revolve around defense for the most part. But it cranks the intensity up right away at practice, because we'll have our pre-practice walkthrough, we'll stretch, and then we go right into special teams compete. So it cranks the intensity up right away. But there's a winner and loser every time. Like you can't hide from it. All eyes are on those drills. It's filmed. It's measured. They know that's the way to get on the field for us, special teams wise. So that's a little bit, I'm probably missing one of the drills that we do for that, but there's usually 2 on each day, Tuesday and Wednesday, that we do.
Yeah, I think, again, size-wise, we're all in a similar situation. You want to get as many kids. And if all you have in your special teams period is maybe a drills period, and then running a few reps, which are, that by the nature of what we all do right now, we're not going full tilt on special teams running down the field. So where do you compete? Where does that kid get that opportunity to show that he could do something? And I think that's exactly it, because it's not always well, this kid did really well on our scout team this week. That doesn't always necessarily translate to a special teams performer because it is a space play, right? And now you see guys working in space, not committing penalties, or the things that you want to see that like, okay, I do feel like I can put this guy on the field now. And all of that obviously is a help, but it translates. Like you mentioned the turnover takeaways, that being emphasized as a competition within practice, and it translated for you guys. So I think that is the point of this, not just to compete, but that actually these will be things that show up that, hey, we've put you in this situation before. And, we've put some of the backups in those situations before. I think that really adds more to than we're putting competition into our practice. Why? Well, ultimately, everything we do, we want it to translate to game day, whatever the nature of that drill might be.
Right.
There's one other one as we're talking about special teams, and I will link this whole episode. I did one on the kicking scrimmage, and it's one here in Ohio. Wally Hood, who was the head coach at Otterbein and at a number of different places, came up with this kicking scrimmage idea. I think Daryl Hazel might have popularized this when he was the head coach at Kent. But the idea behind it is you draft for your special team scrimmage. And it's pretty interesting if you let the kids draft it. Obviously, who are they picking first? They're picking the kicker, the long snapper, which is pretty cool because now I think just that exercise flips in their mind. What is the value of special teams, right? It starts to change it. But a kicking scrimmage is simply, you're going to start with a kickoff. Then the offense will have the ball. They get one play. Now, what we translated that into, we turned it into, that was going to be a third down scrimmage. And we would award one more play. And it wasn't necessarily like a third down again, but we would reward one more play for the offense to try to move the ball down the field to be in a better situation for field position. But ultimately, that's what it was. So if they converted, they got that extra play. If not, they had to execute part of the kicking game. And I think we made a rule like, you have one fake within it. I think we played it a quarter. We would always, and we did this during camp, we'd always get officials out to do it. And it was just a nice breakup of what typically we get involved in, spending a lot of time on our O and D, and that's still a part of it. But now it's who can compete in this drill. Where can we see some of these guys on film, on special teams that translate to it? So like I said, the point of all of this is that it translates. Yes, we're building culture. We're doing all those kinds of things. But as you get to the season, competition, it does, even though they get one at the end of the week, it changes the nature of things, right? I think the toughest part is when you have a week, especially like for your younger guys, a JV game is not going to be played, it's canceled, whatever. We saw it at the college level too, right? We had a JV team at BW. We would make sure that we had, an extra 15 minutes somewhere in that week to just let those guys go compete against each other, right? It just adds so much more to what these kids are doing and how they're preparing just because of the nature of our sport and who those kids want to be too. They do want to compete. So to wrap it up, I guess the things you see as the biggest value, and recommending to a coach out there, if I was going to add competition to my practice, here's what I'd start with. And I'll kick it over to you to wrap this up.
Like I said, if I was going to talk to, especially like a new head coach, and I'd say you're going to try to get competition in your program and in your practice, first I'd start in the off season somehow to try to get that implemented all year round. And then in season, I would try to get that implemented through drills, live work, because especially a lot of us don't want our guys getting hurt, right? And getting guys taken to the ground. But I think that's a lost art because especially with scrimmages getting taken away and we only have 2 scrimmages in a game and we don't get a lot of live work as it is. I think that's something that you got to take advantage of. And I think that's a way that you can intertwine live work, competition, and situational work along with getting JV guys, fringe guys, special teams guys, and your starters all experience at that level and trying to get them moving at game speed. I think that's the hardest thing to do is get 14 to 17-year-olds to practice at game speed Monday through Thursday because a lot of times they don't want to, whether they broke up with their girlfriend, their mom yelled at them for not taking out the trash, they got an F on their Spanish test. There's a bunch of stuff going on in their world. But I value this almost over anything is, are we going full speed? Anything we do. I'd rather practice for an hour and a half, but that hour and a half is full speed, than practice for 2.5 hours. And that's just how I am. And our program knows that, our coach knows that, and our players know that. And I think we're slowly working towards that's who we are as a football program.
Lucas?
Yeah, I would agree. Some sort of off-season competition, whether that's, like what we do with the shield points. And then again, I would just echo the full speed nature of it. And then as far as end season goes, and then I think the biggest thing is just making sure that the competition is actually going to show up on Friday night and making sure that it translates, like the turnovers and takeaways for us. Like that's one of the biggest ones, I think, to track that because, if you look at the data or whatever you want to call it, I think the turnovers, that's a key to winning football games, right? So that's where like we start. And I think that's what I would tell a coach is, start with what actually wins you football games and then make that a competition and make that important. And always like what you emphasize is what you're going to get. So if you put a lot of emphasis on it, it's going to show up, right? So I really think I loved your point about full speed, right? An hour and a half. That was a big change for us too. Like we don't, the longest we go is just over 2 hours at the beginning of the year. And then, by the end of the season, we're an hour and a half and it's full speed. You got to go full speed. So whatever competition that is, make sure that it's full speed, with those situations. Yeah. I think that's the key.
Yeah. I'd say, even if you're in a situation and maybe there is, you're a smaller place and there's the guys that you have, that there's not a whole lot of depth behind. I think it's getting your guys just in the mindset of compete. So simply going through the process of guys, you got reps all day. I want you to count how many you won. And at the end of practice, who won a rep or who won 3 reps or whatever it might be, just to keep it in their mind and to have them not going through the motions of drills because there isn't that. And I've been in those situations, small programs, low numbers, taking over a program inherently. I can't fake it. Like you are the one guy who plays this position. And when then we're moving people around, but you can still compete. So I think finding ways to do it within your situation is 100% something everybody can do. It's nice to have, Mickey Marotti out there on the microphone yelling who won and lost and having a bunch of managers track that and sharing it at the end of the day. But ultimately, raise your hand who won a rep today. That'll work too. The last part of this, I think all of this is afforded by efficient practices. Right? You've said hour and a half, give me an hour and a half fast. And one of the ways to do that, I think, is a tool both of you guys use is GoRout. Would love to hear how that plays into creating these competitive practices, creating these efficient practices so that you aren't out on the field the whole time and things are crisp.
Yeah, we were just talking before you showed up. So we got GoRoutes for the first time last year, but I use it at Eastwood with the Rutherfords for 3 years. I worked with them. They were great mentors for me. And I loved GoRoutes for a number of reasons. I think if you have the staff, I do think you need coaches that can help you use them, and your players need to be a little bit locked in with using them. I think they could be a huge tool with being efficient with your practice and making your team skelly periods, inside run periods very game-like because obviously, you have the little devices, right? Everybody has them on. You could practice no huddle offenses, which we all know that's a lot of what people do. Not all the wide receivers don't always come into a huddle with everybody that we play. And I think another big thing is you don't have to worry about rain. If it sprinkles out there, those things will still work and you can still keep your practice moving and you don't have to worry about scout cards getting wet, keeping scout cards in the shed and running back and forth and making sure you have the binder for this period. And I know some old coaches might, roll their eyes at us, but obviously you have your phone out there and you're sending them to the players. And I'm a big believer in this, and I'm a little bit of a new school coach mixed in with an old school coach, but I do believe that it gets kids locked into what you're doing. They like technology, right? And the moment we bought GoRoutes, they're like, oh, these are cool, right? This isn't just like running up to a huddle and looking at a card where a coach has to talk through every position, right? I can look at my device. I can go get lined up and you can be really efficient with your plays and the number of reps you run. And especially if you ever want to do a rerun, it's very easy to get those guys all lined up and get them going. And I think GoRoute's very good with that. And I'm very grateful to have them and being able to have the funds to have those. For us, we have 16 devices. And the things that we've learned is we The belts end up having to be a little bit of issue, especially for the big guys. So we made XXXL belts and we tied them with tape and said, those are our big guy belts. So they know which ones to grab. And it just made us, it's a little bit of a learning curve. And guys have learned how to put those on and move faster. And it's really made us be able to be efficient with our practice. And it's the same thing in our program, especially when we went sprint-based football. We are not on the field more than 2 hours. I say if we are, something bad, something went wrong, right? Or I got frustrated, or we obviously something, which doesn't really happen very often, but I don't like to be out on the field more than 2 hours. And as the season goes on, we take off time, and by the end of the season we're out there for an hour and a half. And that, again, trying to keep your kids fresh and trying to get your kids to realize, hey, I might do 2 reps here, but I'm going to do 2 100% reps and make sure I'm ready to go on Friday. And I think GoRout, this allows you to do that, and it allows you to just be more efficient with those team and group periods throughout your practice.
Definitely. Lucas?
Yeah. Again, I'll just echo a lot of what he said, but I think efficiency is the key. I think that's where I've probably changed a lot throughout my career. I come from a very old school program, old school coach. We were a wishbone team. We were practicing for 2.5 hours, and that's how I ran stuff my first half of my career, whether I was a coordinator or a head coach. And we made the switch about, 5-6 years ago to really just everything that we wanted to do. We wanted to be more efficient. And some of that had to do with me wanting to be a really good father and husband at home too, and I just started thinking about ways to keep coaches on staff, to retain coaches, to keep kids out for football, because I think at the end of the day, kids still want to be held accountable. They still want discipline. They'll work hard, but they're being pulled in a lot of different directions too, right? If you're keeping them out there for 2+ hours, 2.5 hours, and it's just monotony, right? Then it goes in with the competition phase. They want fast, right? They want to compete. They want to go fast, but it's our job as coaches to be efficient. GoRout, when we went to that, I couldn't believe, and I was a defensive coordinator and the head coach at the time when we got him. And to Coach's point, I was frustrated because it was taking them forever to get the belts on and to get the devices kind of working. I thought, man, this isn't going to be any faster. And then all of a sudden, we're about a week in, and I'm noticing it might be taking them a little bit longer than I'd like to get the belts on. But then I'm looking up at our segment timer, and we're getting done with our team defensive period with 1.5 minutes left, and we got through our whole script, and we bingoed 3 or 4 plays. And then what we started doing was we would save those plays we wanted to rerun for the end, and we would run a couple. And then by the end of the season, I bet we were getting done with a team defensive segment with 2 minutes left on the period, and we would just say on to the next period, and we would actually get ahead of schedule. So you get late in the year and, everyone's kind of man, it's week 8 and we're still out here. Now we're finishing up on a Wednesday with team defense, and they're getting out of practice 3 minutes early because they see 3 minutes left on the board, and we're like, oh, we're good. We're done. I think that kind of keeps the kids' spirits up a little bit too, when they're beat up and it's late in the season. But it made things so much more efficient for us. Now we can get more reps in, and to his point, if we do see an up-tempo team, it's easy to implement because they've really been doing it all season. Our scout team has been doing it all season, You
almost got to tell them to slow down at times, sometimes when they get rolled.
Well, yeah, actually, that happened a little bit last year. I had a new defensive coordinator, and he had never used him before. He was very much I don't know if I'm going to like this. He's I just drawing the scout cards up, and some of it had to do with him figuring out how to upload the diagrams onto GoRout. I taught him how to do that, and ended up
my offensive coordinator had the same issues.
Yeah.
Something new.
I told him, at the end of the day, you can't argue the efficiency of it. And he was like, you're right.
Yeah, the hard part is going back to a slow offense, where everybody huddles.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's even though you guys are looking, everybody has to come back in. Come in, the quarterback will break the huddle, then you guys go.
Yeah.
And they're like, even the wide receivers? I go, even the wide receivers? I'm like, that's what they do. I'm like, we got to do that.
Yeah. You'll actually get some scout team kids that are fighting to get out there just because they want to have that device on. To your point, the technology piece, we had a couple guys that they just wanted to wear the belt and the device, so.
That's why we ordered 16. So we have 5 that wear them that aren't in, and they'll tell the kids hey, there's 10 plays in this period. I'll take 5, you take 5.
Yeah.
It'll switch without a coach even saying it.
Yeah.
It's like, and they're getting reps, right? And they have it on, they have their cap on, and I don't even have to say anything. Kids know we're grabbing all the devices.
One of the things that we started doing 2 years ago with them was we'll kind of like look at who we're playing on Sunday, and we'll decide kind of like, here are the guys that make sense to be on our scout team, and we'll have them put the belts on kind of during pre-practice. They just won't turn the devices on right away. And then our managers will tell them, at this period, go ahead and turn the devices on so that they're on as soon as we go into like inside run and skelly. That helped the efficiency of me being frustrated with sitting there for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, watching them try to put that belt on. So we get that done during pre-practice on most of our days now. So they know going into Monday, Tuesday, who's going to be on scout team and who needs to put a belt on during pre-practice. So that kind of helped us. And we had one coach that's kind of assigned to helping out with that. So
having a GoRout coach helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A GoRout coordinator helps.
There you go.
There you go.
Awesome stuff, guys. Great ideas. I took notes. I know there's definitely some things I'm looking at for our offensive practices and passing along to the coaches on our staff. So thank you for spending the time and sharing, and look forward to talking to you guys in the future as well.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Art of Practice on the Coaching Coordinator Network, presented by GoRout. If you found value in this conversation on making practice more competitive, share it with a coach who's always looking for better ways to create energy, execution, and accountability in practice. And if you want to maximize reps, improve communication, and keep practice moving, visit GoRout.com/podcast to learn more. That's GoRout.com/podcast. Enter the code coordinator for 50% off setup fees. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected for more conversations on how great coaches design better practices.